What's going on, everyone? So welcome to my latest video. This is obviously my latest catch-up video. If you're new to the channel, this is where I talk about all the films that I saw in a said month. In this case, it's all the films that I saw in January of 2023 that were in fact 2022 films. Now, there were 7 films that I saw that were from 2022 that I managed to see in January 2023. And to be quite frank, a lot of these have to do with ones where the Oscars were announced and it was like, oh man, I need to check that out. Or they were already on my radar, but I was just kind of waiting for them to finally come in theaters. And then there were a couple where it was like, oh, I missed that in theaters. So if you want my full in-depth thoughts on these movies, unfortunately, this isn't the video for that. If you guys want my full in-depth thoughts, you guys can follow me on Letterboxd, which is down below. In those videos, and those reviews, I should say, my full in-depth thoughts are provided, but here I will just be talking very briefly about the movie, my thoughts real quick, and then the rating. So guys, enough exposition. Let's get started. So kicking things off, I saw Bros. I got the Blu-ray out from the library, and this was a rock-solid film. Not gonna lie, I was very disappointed in myself after watching this film, having not seen it in theaters. This was in theaters for like a month or so. I should have seen it in theaters. I really should have. I should have supported it because this is a very, very enjoyable film. I thought it was rock solid, and I would definitely recommend this film. I loved the chemistry between the leads, and there were definitely some laugh out loud moments. It's very well shot too, which is something that I can't really say is the case for a lot of romantic comedies. So props to Bros. Bros, for me, it's a solid film, and that's why I personally will be giving a... Next up, we have Smile. This one I also missed in theaters, and there really is no excuse for it because this was in theaters even longer than Bros. This was in theaters for like 2 months. But, you know, I guess it was one of those situations where I was kind of curious about this movie, but at the same time, not enough to see it in theaters, at least when this came out in theaters. But I did want to check it out. And so watching it on Blu-ray, from the library, it was still nice. Like, this is by no means a perfect horror film. It is a okay-ish to solid movie. It has its pros for sure. One scene in particular where the camera is slowly moving into the hospital room, I thought that was excellent. It's very well acted. It does kind of fall off the rails a bit towards the end, and you can definitely draw some comparisons between like The Ring and It Follows for sure, and it's not as good as those two movies, but it definitely is a relatively enjoyable film, and it's definitely better than a lot of other horror films that I've seen this year. And yeah, for me personally, Smile, I personally will be giving a... Next up, we have Holy Spider. So not gonna lie, Holy Spider I saw in theaters, and I thought that it was going to be considered, by me at least, a 2023 film. But then I saw that it was on the short list for 2022 films for the international language category. And so that's when it made me realize, oh no, this is a 2022 film. But either way, Holy Spider is a really, really good film. It's one of those cases where I am so glad that I'll just casually scroll on, Showtimes at AMC and then, take a quick little look at the premise. Like, when I saw the premise for Holy Spider, I was like, yeah, I need to check this out. And sure enough, this film is very powerful. It's got a great lead performance. It does a really good balancing act of being both thrilling but also very dramatic, and it hits home its themes and messages really, really well. If you haven't seen Holy Spider, which odds are you didn't because it was only in theaters for like a week or so, I would highly recommend you check this film out because it is not to be missed. It's definitely one of the best films of 2022. For me, Holy Spider, I personally will be giving a... Next up, we have Clerks III, which was a movie that I didn't see in theaters. And I can explain about that. And it might take a little bit longer than a minute to explain about that, but I will, because I was frustrated about it. But a little bit of background. Kevin Smith, he's someone I respect. I liked Clerks 1 a lot. I definitely see the value of what that did for independent film industry at the time. And then Clerks 2 I found to be quite enjoyable. So Clerks 3, naturally, I was kind of curious about it, but at the same time a bit nervous because Kevin Smith has recently said that he's not interested in what the critics have to say or really anyone other than the fans of his movies. And I get why some people might look at that and say, like, that's a good thing, but at the same time, it means that you you don't really want to have it where it's like there's any critiques of your films, and you don't want to try to become a better filmmaker. You just want to kind of stay the way that you are. And I will say this, the last couple of movies of Kevin Smith, I felt that his movies just weren't that good. They just were, in my opinion, paying homage to things that he did before and just kind of saying like, oh, remember this, and it's just kind of like, it's not enough for me personally. Like I'm one of those individuals that liked Red State. I liked Tusk. Those strange movies at the same time combine that with intriguing characters. And I do also like, again, the Clerks movies. So I didn't see Clerks 3 in theaters, simply put, because I'm part of AMC A-List. And this was a Fathom Events movie, meaning that it wasn't included with the AMC A-List. So I was like, okay, he wants me to spend 15 to 20 bucks and put my trust in him. And I can't lie, I just didn't have that trust. And after watching the movie, the final product, I'm glad that I didn't see this in theaters, the excluded A-List, because this is not good in my personal opinion. I was very disappointed by this movie. It has a lot of the same issues as Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. A lot of the same issues. And I want to keep it brief because I don't want to just harp on this movie, because I know a lot of people that really did like Clerks 3, and I can respect that. I just found myself to be very disappointed, especially with the third act, with what it tries to pull. It just really didn't hit home. In fact, a lot of it felt very undercut. And also, I just really wasn't a big fan of the dialogue, which is kind of crazy for me to say, because I've always known Kevin Smith to be someone that is really good with articulating dialogue. And I also love hearing him in interviews. But man, I just had such a rough time watching this movie. I was very disappointed, and that's why, for me, Clerks 3, I gotta be honest, Clerks 3, I gotta give it A. Next up, we have Women Talking. This is a film that I was very much so looking forward to. The only issue is that it took about a month or so for it to finally get in theaters near me. And I gotta say, after watching it, it's one of those films that I respect. I think it's rock solid. It's very well acted. I also appreciate the cinematography with what it utilizes to, convey and match the themes and messages. But I gotta be honest with myself. I did have issues with the pacing, and also I felt like there were certain plot points that just really weren't fleshed out enough. I had a lot of issues with that because there's not much going on and just talking, which I definitely respect and understand that that's the whole point. But at the same time, there are certain things that it kind of hints at, and it's like, okay, that's cool. Obviously visual storytelling is something that I'm all about. But there were things that they didn't really finalize by the end in terms of either visually or dialogue driven, particularly with Ben Wishaw's character. No spoilers, but his character clearly wants to say something by the end of the film, and he just doesn't. So it just it's left up in the air. And I'm not usually one of those people that are just like, oh, plot hole. I'm not I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, that's a plot hole. It's not. It's just something that I kind of wish that I wanted to know what it was that he wanted to say. But nonetheless, again, this is a film that I respect. I think it's rock solid. I just found myself to be a little bit dulled by, certain patches of the movie. Maybe I'll revisit this, but as of right now, it might be just a one and done film. But again, rock solid. Women Talking, I highly respect, and I personally will be giving a... Next up, we have Triangle of Sadness. This was a film that came out around the time that I was about to get married. So naturally, I didn't get to see it in theaters because of that, time in my life, which was great. But here's the thing. I said to myself, okay, well, when I get back from my honeymoon and everything, it will still be in theaters. Wrong. It was only in theaters for a week. So I was like, well, I guess I'm not going to get to see this movie because odds are it's going to be kind of difficult for it to be, on streaming. But lo and behold, it actually managed to secure a Best Picture nomination, which meant that it was going to be back in theaters. And sure enough, my wife and I, we got to see this in theaters. And I quite liked this movie. There were a lot of sequences where I was actually dying of laughter. It's very well acted, very, very well shot. Its themes and messages are, some might argue, a bit heavy-handed, but at the same time, it hits the messages home really, really well, in my personal opinion. The ending is quite ambiguous, but at the same time, there is a lot that you can read into, and it's like, okay, I get what they were saying and everything, and that's intriguing. I'm curious how this will be in terms of rewatchability value. That's what I'm curious about. But nonetheless, Triangle of Sadness, I definitely liked it. I think it's a good film, and I personally will be giving it a. And last but not least, we have To Leslie, which is a film that I had no clue about until about a week or two before the Oscars were announced, when Kate Winslet was saying that the lead performance in this film, is apparently the best of 2022. So, Kate Winslet being my favorite actress, of course, I was like, okay, well, I got to be on the lookout for this film. But also, part of me thought that it was a 2023 film for some reason, so I was like, okay, I'll be on the lookout for it. So I wasn't expecting it to be nominated for Best Actress. So lo and behold, when that occurred, Oscar morning, I was like, well, I guess I got to watch this film sooner than expected. And after watching it, I'm glad that I watched it. It's a really good lead performance. Like, for sure, I 100% understand why the lead actress got the Oscar nomination. She is fantastic. It's a character study of a individual that we all see throughout life, for sure. And true to life, those individuals that the lead character kind of encapsulates, there's not likable. They're not likable in the slightest, but at the same time, they're so raw, so human, that you can't help but understand and want to try to see them do better. You know what I'm saying? And that's something that I really appreciate about this film, that it was able to garner those emotions from me. And I will also say that the gritty looking cinematography was something that I also appreciated. It's a movie that the pacing and the length I do kind of take issues with, because this could have been like an 80 to 90-minute film, in my personal opinion. And you feel that especially in like the middle. But nonetheless, I would definitely recommend To Leslie, especially for the lead performance. Oscar nomination, very well deserved. And To Leslie, I personally will be giving a. All right, guys, those are the 2022 movies that I saw in January of 2023. Let me know the 2022 movies that you saw in January of 2023 down below. And guys, as always, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget the subscription, notification bell, follow me on Letterboxd, and I will catch you guys later.